Welcome back, great committee. The time is 3:24, and let's pick up where we left off. But before we do, I would like to get a couple of things out of the way. As a reminder, majority of these nominations came from the INB. I believe there were 5 that the INB didn't provide any selection to the mayor, and therefore the mayor selected his own. You might notice that some people's applications are dated January 27th. I think there's 5. If you want, we can provide you the list. Those people did not go through the INB process and therefore was selected by the mayor, and the mayor sent his nominations down to us.
Oh, Chair.
Yes.
I just noticed point of information. I don't know if it can be resolved before first reading, but Miss Hanson,
Yes.
Margaret Elizabeth Hanson, did not sign her application.
Oh. Yes, let's get that resolved before we do that. I do have one that is signed and one that's not signed. The smaller, I got 2 printed ones, seem signed, and one isn't, but we can make sure that you get a signed copy, and we can double check that the appropriate application was signed.
Thank you.
Also, of course, thank you. Also, considering we have several more resolutions to do before mass nominations are over, if you could please take the time to consider what day you guys might be available next week. Member Paulton and the DRIP committee have Tuesday reserved, but if Wednesday or Monday work for you, then we're probably going to have to reschedule this meeting. I will ask you later, but you can take the time to think about it at about 4:15. At that time, I plan to stop where we are and take whatever nominees we have, either in person and online, and take a moment to allow them to introduce themselves and ask them questions before we adjourn, so they don't have to rejoin us next week and spend another afternoon with us, even though we are fantastic to clearly spend time with. But that is my plan, members. So from now until about 4:10-ish, if you could let me know at that time at 4:10, whether or not you're available either Monday or Wednesday, I would appreciate it. And right now, we're going to continue on with Resolution 25-31 with Fire and Public Safety. If Mr. Pele,
Chair, question?
yes.
Regarding your Monday or Wednesday?
Yeah.
Are you looking at Monday morning or Wednesday morning, or it doesn't matter? You want a time and date?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Please let me know, either Monday morning, Monday afternoon, Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon. Either kind of work for me, but to avoid a very lengthy discussion at that time, if we can just all figure out what kind of works best for us now-ish. Now-ish. Aloha, Mr. Pele, if you could please introduce yourself, and then the members will have an opportunity to ask you questions.
Aloha, Chair and committee members. My name is John Pele, and it is wonderful to be here today for your consideration of the Fire and Public Safety Commission. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Officially on the application, it's Tau Pele. Fire away.
Oh, perfect.
No pun
I was
intended.
like waiting for more.
No pun intended.
Members, any questions? I know Member Paulton has questions, so I'll let her begin. Member Paulton.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Tau Pele, for your willingness to serve, as well as for your assistance with the Lahaina HIHP residents after the storm. So part of my question and my focus, especially this term, is evacuation plans for our elderly and disabled. And Fire and Public Safety Commission oversees not only the fire department, but also MEMA. And while it could be the fire chief that calls for an evacuation, I think MEMA actually executes, and they've received the Genesis software. And so I was wondering, with that knowledge, MEMA has the Genesis software, the fire chief calls for an evacuation. We don't know the Genesis software, and our evacuation of elderly and disabled needs a lot of work given our last catastrophe. what kind of plans or how would you bring us up to par?
Thanks for that question. Well, the commission, I was able to tune in. You know, I did find out last minute that I was up for nomination. So you got to look at the January 16th, and it was quite impressive to watch the MEMA presentation. And, you know, they did talk about the integrated preparedness plan and their 5 priorities. And actually, number 2 is public info and getting the awareness out there. That's on their long-term planning, on their long-term planning report. So the 5 is operational coordination, public information and awareness, how to get the message out there, situational awareness within the community and the workers, mass care services was number 4, and community resilience was number 5. So it's pretty, as I watched the meeting, I'll share in all honesty, I was really impressed how involved MEMA is in this commission, and they led most of the conversations, and they have a lot going on. And like everybody else, they're facing staff shortages too, right? I think they have 15 approved positions, 22 approved positions, 15 budgeted. So they're going to have to come for this body to seek some amendments and funding. But that's who I would lean on, is to follow their integrated plan that they created.
So do you think that evacuation is one size fits all and that
No,
we're...
definitely not. I mean, I would, and again, when I interviewed with INB, I let them know clearly that I am not an expert. I am not a fireman. I'm not a firefighter. And when I look at things, I'll try to look through clarity and not conviction. So I'm there to receive information and think clarity with my expertise and what I know, but definitely from reviewing some of the AG reports and what you guys have seen, it's not one size fits all. I don't think it is, especially with the elderly, right? You mentioned Holly Maholu, and we all know what happened there, right? So
I just would say, like, in response to what you're saying, I have no problem supporting your nomination. It's just I would like to see, the mayor doesn't have oversight of the fire department or MEMA. It's the Fire and Public Safety Commission. And the more that those agencies are held accountable, the more that the Fire and Public Safety Commission asks them to raise the bar to get us to where we need to go, the better our county is as a whole. And so while it's great to be educated by them, I'm not looking for like a yes person per se, but someone that, I'm sure that you have experience with your own kupuna or family and friends that may be disabled, family and friends that may take MEO paratransit guests that have special needs. And given our recent history, I think that's an area that needs to be prioritized. And so I'm just asking that if put on this board, that's something that is done, that it's kept front of mind.
Oh, yes, most definitely. I think, when people ask me what the committee is about, I just go to the 3 R's. That's what it's spelled out. So it's review operations, of course, right? And then make recommendations. But the last one is important too, right? Is to report. We take public input, right? And we do reports and we do findings and we ask the deep questions that, and I don't want to offend anybody, but sometimes we're in our own lane per se, and people can think in their box. So me as a commissioner, perhaps I have the opportunity to think a little bit more wide range, where some of the entities do try to fit within their criteria. And so I think that's where the advantage is, especially when it comes from listening to the community, right? We're all doing our civic duty or wanting to do our civic duty for our communities, correct? So I just look at this as part of that extension to continue my desire in civic duty and responsibility.
Member Paulton, you have any other questions?
That concludes my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members, any other questions for Mr. Tao Tao Pele? Let me double check online.
You can call me Pele. I was Pele my whole life until the world changed.
Okay. I will say I do have the pleasure of knowing Mr. Pele quite well, and he is, as I've said before, somebody I would trust with my children, and that matters to me, and so I, of course, will trust him on this commission, and I look forward to supporting you on this commission and any other commission you decide to serve on. Thank you, Mr. Pele.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? I will,
Chair.
Member Rollins Fernandez has a question for you.
Sorry, excuse me.
Member Rollins Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. Aloha, Mr. Pele. Mahalo for your willingness to serve on the Fire Commission. I won't ask about your attendance because your attendance was stellar on the Molokai Planning Commission. So my other two questions that I usually ask candidates are, one, if you've had any experience with the commission that you've been nominated for, if you've watched the meetings or reviewed the meeting minutes, and then three, if you would share with us a little more about your vision on how you plan to contribute. And then since you're specifically for the Molokai seat, any thoughts you'd like to share with us regarding that position?
Oh, thanks for the question. I don't have a lot of experience with, other than with my reviews of the meetings for the commission. I find the minutes really hard to, they're kind of, the agendas are kind of like almost all the same. So you got to go on YouTube and watch the meetings and things like that. So that's what I've been doing. And like I stated, I was really impressed moving forward at the vision that they have, especially involving MEMA, involving the fire department. He mentioned Councilmember Paulton and Chair Lee working with Hopi Farms and the work that they're trying to do to get that place under, the fire chief gave that. Yeah. And then with Councilmember Kama on housing and how, he's not going to waive a lot of the permits, but he'll work with owners to try to get the burn zones rebuilt. And for me, what I'm going to try to bring is, I have a little bit of experience. I'm not a professional firefighter. I was part of a community association that I managed for 14 years, and we were a Firewise property. That's not any level to what you're seeing and our professionals do, but we did have benchmarks that we had to meet in certain criteria as far as fire protection. And as Council Member Paulton said, I'll try to do the job as best I can to represent the community and bring concerns and forth to our commission. And I know it's a hard line to draw, right? It's not a yes man. And I appreciate that being said, because that's an important thing to know, that you're not a yes man, because you're not really representing the community when you have that kind of mindset. That's my belief. And I don't know if that answers your question, Councilmember Rollins Fernandez. So if I haven't, please, I can expound. And you can yell at me or.
No, I think that answered the question. Your experience and how you envision contributing to the commission. I think one of the things that we'll be working on with the fire department is the updated fire code. There are some amendments that we discussed, but we had to adopt it by the end of last year. So we're kind of in a pinch. Not sure if the Fire Commission reviews that, but we'll be all working on that this year. I fully support your nomination. Mahalo for serving. Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you, Member Rollins Fernandez. Members, any further questions? If not, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Pele. Members, unfortunately, Mrs. Green, or Miss Green, however she would like to be addressed, is not with us right now. If you wouldn't mind remembering John's introduction and our questions, and we will place this resolution on hold, and we will move on. And when we reconvene, we will bring this and the others back up. Member Sukimura?
So can we approve him? and
Cannot,
take-
because it's on one resol.
Oh, they didn't separate it. Okay.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about what do we do if we don't have an opportunity to interview a nominee and we don't really know her just yet. But thank you, John. Thank you for coming. We appreciate your time. And we will hold this one and get back to it next week. And again, as a reminder, please let us know what time works best for you. So we are going to move on then to the Housing Advisory Board. Let's go in the list we have here. So if Mr. Curtis is available, is he with us? If he is online, if you could please introduce yourself and the members will have an opportunity to ask you some questions. I don't think we do have all five, so
There we go.
we're gonna have to do the same. Aloha, Mr. Curtis, if you would like to introduce yourself and the members will then have an opportunity to ask you questions.
Okay, you've got quite a bit on your schedule. I'll try and keep this brief. Resident of Maui since '88. Worked for general contractors every year except for one, where I was a transportation director at MEO during the housing slowdown. I know that it's a brand new board, so haven't been able to observe the process there. Experience, I've been on one state board previously, the Board of Tax Review, which was kind of a appeals board that the state had, and that's no longer in existence. I did 5 years on the Board of Ethics, and I'm currently entering my second year on the Salary Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. Members, do we have any questions? Members, okay, I was gonna say your mic is on. Okay, I don't think Member Cook, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis, for your willingness to serve. Do you have just your thoughts of the Housing Advisory Board? What are your thoughts about being on the board and some of the ways that we can move that forward?
It seems the main emphasis in the charter was people that were involved in financing and development, and I do not bring that to the table. I'm more on the back end of the project execution, and I think that's the value I can bring to the board. I'm currently involved in a affordable housing project as a subcontractor. We're the site work people, so I've got familiarity with infrastructure. I've done a lot of county. The past 12 years, I've been doing county and private public works for the most part. Roadway improvements, culvert repairs. Was at the airport doing paving the night of the fire. And it was a surprise to everybody that what was going on the other side of the mountain there.
Thank you. So that answers my question. Basically, you have a hands-on for basically the building industry and for housing.
Yeah, I think where I can provide input would be potential bottlenecks on, just getting regular people, regular housing. I mean, I understand all the what we have to go through for larger scale developments, but if there's ways we could help streamline single family, either rebuilding or housing on land that's already zoned residential, it's already got its infrastructure in. If there's ways to maybe simplify the permit process to get people to build their houses quicker on land that's already approved, I could provide input on that. I've done multifamily. I was on Lanai 20 odd years ago. We did the teachers housing, or we called it the teachers housing. It's right below Koele Lodge. That was one of the projects I worked on market housing. Did 300 homes over in Kauai and Kapa'a for a Maui-based company. So I've got.
Thank you. You answered my question. You got experience. Thank you for your willingness to serve. That's all, Chair.
Thank you. Member Paulton?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Curtis, for your willingness to serve. I see you not only serve, but you continue to serve, and that's awesome. I just was wondering how you would address any conflicts of interest.
I would, being on ethics, I'm completely familiar with that and don't have a problem recusing myself. If a lot of it's the development side, as a subcontractor, but my employer potentially could be involved in that, and if that was for TJ Gomes Trucking is my employer. If it was one of their projects, I would certainly recuse myself, even though I don't have any financial interest in the development or the company.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Paulton. I'm going to go with Member Rollins Fernandez, followed by Member Johnson.
Mahalo, Chair. I was actually wondering if anyone from the administration is on, because this is a brand new board. I was curious about what kind of things would be on their agenda. Like, what would they be approving,
That's a great question. Let's triple check if anybody from admin is involved. And I had the same question as you when we were tasked with doing this. I will let you know that I looked it up, but somebody else is probably better to answer this question because I do have more questions as well. But to answer yours, this board is tasked with advising, aiding, and supporting the director's efforts to create affordable housing. What that means specifically, not too sure.
Yeah, right. I read the charter and I saw that it exempts this Housing Advisory Board from Section 13-2 regarding geographic residency requirements, and that's why 4 out of the 5 are from the same residency. So that's okay, according to this. Although, my preference would be some kind of diversity. But Member Paulton's question kind of spurred my question a little more, because then what would he need to recuse himself if there's any projects? Would they be reviewing projects? What projects would go to the Housing Advisory Board over like the Maui Planning Commission? The Maui Planning Commission or the other planning commissions have very specific duties and functions. So
Corp Counsel is here,
I'm-
and she's adjusting her mic like she has something to say, so
Oh,
please
perfect.
go.
Okay, great. I will mute myself.
No, and I think that's a great question, and that's something definitely we would look into as well. But I think the way I'm reading the charter is not so much the development that's already happening, but more of kind of like a future, if we were to do this, what should we do, or where should we, should we do things? So it seems like it's more of a general advice to the housing department itself. So this might be something that, if it's going to be a more specific thing, after the board is established, the board may need to do like an admin role to kind of define what they are supposed to do, what not. So I'm not sure if the mayor's office necessarily would know. I don't know if the Department of Housing would have any ideas on what they would be asking this board. So that might be something to consider.
Mahalo for that. And then would council be able to send items for their review? I mean, we've talked about different policies that we've discussed, such as amending, the 2.96 requirements of the 25% affordable rental for the duration that it would remain affordable. Remember Paulton's bill. Owner occupied in perpetuity, creating programs. So other than the construction and like vertical construction, infrastructure, et cetera, policies that reclaim our housing, or that once housing is built will remain residential housing, those kinds of things, would we be able to send like how we do to the Maui Planning Commission? Oh, that was for Corp Council.
Yeah,
If she has answer.
she's looking at,
Yeah, I'm just looking at the charter section.
There
It
you go.
doesn't directly say that the council could send anything. I will do more research and get back to you, but that's my short answer, sorry. Thank you.
Okay, but the charter doesn't say we can't. Okay, very good. All right, then we can. All right. So, mahalo, Mr. Curtis, for your patience as we suss out what this new board can and cannot do, and mahalo for your willingness to go on this adventure with us with this new board. My question, I just have one question because it seems like you've already explained your contribution, and there's no experience with this board because it's new, and it looks like your attendance is good with the other boards and commissions that you've served on. The question is, if you review the Maui County Affordable Housing Plan, I can't, it was something like that in 2021, 22?
Comprehensive Affordable Housing Plan.
Thank you, Member Johnson.
Sorry to jump in.
Not specifically yet, but I will look it up right now or right after this meeting. And again,
Wonderful.
it's very vague in the charter. I've seen the charter language. I'm curious as to how this board will evolve. And my term is only for 1 year, that we've got these staggered terms on this first thing. So we may just be gelling on what this commission or this board does before I even leave. One thing I did do at ethics is I was kind of spearheading the implementation of the online financial disclosure statements. So the Board of Ethics could spend more time looking at, we spent most of our time reviewing financial disclosures, and I thought that was something that we could streamline. So that's kind of an organizational thing I've done in the past. As another...
You're hired. You created that? Oh, man, you got
we as a board, we created it, but I had to fill that out on the state side, and I'd go, well, I think the county could do this too, and we just need to get a little bit of funding to get the software written, and it allows more time for ethics to focus on the more important things, I thought.
Absolutely. The online system has just been wonderful. I love it. And mahalo for looking into the comprehensive affordable housing plan. And generally, when boards and commissions duties and functions are more vague, it kind of is whatever the board, the direction that the board wants to take it. Just like the Youth Commission, Council on Aging, it's like as advocates, go and create great recommendations for administration and council. Mahalo, Chair.
thank you, Member Rollins Fernandez. Member Johnson?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Curtis. Appreciate all the work and some of the things that you mentioned really sparked my interest. One of the things you said was that you were the subcontractor for the housing on Lanai that you called the teacher housing below the lodge at Koele.
I worked for the general contractor. It was
okay.
JDH Construction, so that was one of the projects I managed.
Was that Evioli, you mean?
It's the multi-story, they're the fourplex and the eightplex.
Yep.
Right below Koele Lodge. So Pineapple we watched the last harvest while that was going on there, and all of our workers got fed because the commissary was still open. But that's what, 30 years ago?
Yeah, and that housing is now called Evioli. It's a LIHTC project. I assume it was a LIHTC project when you worked on it. I don't know that, but I will say thank you because I used to live in that house, in those apartments. So to have someone who actually built affordable housing project rentals on Lanai, that's probably one of the hardest places to build because we're at the end of the supply chain. The boats go back empty. The costs jump up. So I'm really curious to have your voice on that board because you can speak to some of the challenges on the outer islands, right? It can't only be Maui focused, of course, just like Maui say it can't be Oahu focused. So I really appreciate your lived experience on that, and thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, we also built the conference center down below, and then the beach bathroom at Manele Bay.
With all the lava rock, great.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. Thank you, Member Johnson. Member Kama.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Curtis, for being here and answering our questions. And I'm glad that you did say that you did read the charter regarding the Department of Housing and Human Concerns, the Advisory Council. So, I was reading it too, and under Section 8-10.3, it says the power and duties and functions, and it has, I think, 5 items. And the thing that struck me, it says, that's to strive to effectively address the health, safety, and basic social needs of all segments of the county community and to enhance the quality of life for all residents. What does that mean to you, and how would you implement that?
Mr. Curtis, your mic is muted.
Having pulled building permits for single-family houses for almost 35 years, when we did Hawaiian Homes in Pakokalo, I was able to pull 30 permits at a time, and it was the way it flowed was differently. But I think part of the change there is how the banks finance these projects as well, where they instead of granting a developer 30 homes, they want to get 30 qualified people, and each one is financed individually. So that might be some of the changes, but there were, we've got companies on the island, HPM, Miyake, Hansador, that have standard house packages. And if we could maybe get some pre-approved, streamlined house packages, it would cut down the processing time at the building permit part. We're not talking big fancy homes. We're just talking basic kind houses. I live in a Arizumi Hicks Homes that was built in 1959. And that might be a way to help the average person maybe cut their costs and either building a new home or renovating an existing house. And so focus more on affordable housing. The big apartment buildings, you've got to let the developers do that. And that's one of the projects I'm working on right now is PEKEA, but in between Azeka and Safeway. There's a lot of moving parts to do an apartment building, but I think for the average person, a single family home might be something that we could have some assistance in making that easier to get something approved and through the system.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Kama. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much, Mr. Curtis. We are going to move on to our other nominees. I have to make sure not to call them applicants because we learned that there's a difference. So I believe it's you, and I don't want to mispronounce your last name, even though you just told me it. But Dennis, if you could please join us at the podium and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, committee and council members. My name is Dennis Chin. Chinaev. Okay? I want to serve. I'm retired. I've been retired for a long time. I've traveled around the country for 7 years in an RV, getting to see what people do in other places. My background is architecture, urban planning, history. I used to run building, planning, public works departments for cities. Went to the private side, probably built close to 10,000 houses, or in charge of construction of 10,000 houses in all price ranges, all over the place. As a matter of fact, I worked for one company. We had a helicopter I had to go to get all these places. That was fun. Worked for an Indian tribe in California that became the largest Indian casino in California. But more than that, I took them from essentially living in very small units to housing that was affordable for them, economical to build and install the infrastructure for that. I worked for Kaiser Aluminum along the way. We had a 100,000 acre project, which I ended up being the general manager for, commercial, industrial. That's my history. I taught urban planning in colleges, guest lecturer. But more importantly, what I see now is, sitting, doing nothing, essentially. I have the time and the desire to help Maui. I see it as an opportunity to bring some new ideas to a long festering problem on Maui. As I understand it, this board was created really as a result of the fires. And it was, in reading the literature on it, the combination of all the agencies coming together and saying, how can we build affordable housing, not only to replace what we had, but also to house new workers, keeping our existing people here on Maui and the new generations that are coming up here on Maui. I don't view it as, I didn't view this position as something where we would get projects to review, like the Planning Commission, that's their job. I viewed it more conceptually, is that how do we bring affordable housing? What are some of the ideas that we can have? How do we cut through red tape? You've got the governor saying we need affordable housing. You've got the mayor. You've got everybody and their brother saying we need affordable housing, but nobody's been able to produce it, except since the fire, we've seen FEMA just open their units in Lahaina. I've watched the church over by Walmart and watched those units. They have units that have gotten built and have just sat there because of bureaucratic red tape. And so that's the number one area I want to look at, is how we can bring everybody who's involved in reviewing, approving, and seeing that the affordable housing can get built. I also want to look at how we can finance things that are out of the box. I've developed did some of the largest assessment districts in the state of California for infrastructure installation. There can be housing corporations, if they're already created, they can be brought in to help build and finance projects. We could look at federal, state, and local land, county land, for the land that is needed. We could look at working with the development community who know what it takes to build a house. And I'm talking about what are the components that make up the cost of a house. We know it's the land, we know it's the sticks, we know it's the governmental processing, it's the financing cost. Time is money to the development community. How can we cut the time that they have to sit and pay interest on money to build a project that might not currently be able to be built for a couple of years, if not longer? How can we bring everybody together, bring all the departments together and say, I've got these rules, and I've got these rules, and my rules are more important than your rules? How can we say, these rules have got to benefit the whole island, all the people of the island, not your fiefdom, but come together in a reasonable manner with reasonable conditions and in a reasonable time frame. One of the cities I worked at, everybody was doing that. and we said, okay, nothing's going to the planning commission unless we get, the planning department would make the conditions, the departments would look at all the conditions, and if you didn't have your conditions in by a certain time, you're going to get approved without a condition. So either show up, give us your conditions, or get out of the way. And we cut the processing time dramatically doing that. I'm talking too much about what I did, but that's the things I see that need to be happening with this Housing Advisory Committee. We work for the Housing Department. We recommend things to the Housing Department. We're not the Planning Commission. I view it as being innovators, thinkers, thinking out of the box if necessary, but coming up with ideas how we can bring affordable housing to Maui. I looked at the project, the quote, affordable housing project in Haile Maile. All you have to do is drive down the street and see the number of street signs within less than a quarter of a mile. Each one of those signs costing about $1,300. And I think I remember correctly, there's 14 or 15 signs in a quarter mile. Street sign after street sign after street sign saying, telling you what to do that didn't need to be built. I talked to the guys that were building that project. They built a sidewalk 8 feet wide along Haile Maile Road. It goes from one end of the project to the other project and ends, and yet there's a county park just a little ways farther, and they could have narrowed the size of that sidewalk and extended it over to the park so that people who live in that project could go to the park. I mean, people say it's affordable, but I don't think they really mean it. And somehow this council has got to take action to make affordable housing affordable, and I think that's our job, is to recommend ideas on how that could happen.
Thank you very much. Members, do we have any questions? Before we do get into questions, I will say, Casey just came over, obviously a minute ago or so, and we're trying to figure out the terms of the seats. She said they're all from now, they're staggered, but it's supposed to be 2 years and not one. So we're going to take all these interviews and we're going to have to hold off on voting. So if we could just all remember what we discussed. Yeah. But if anybody has any questions, Member Paulton.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chin IF, for your willingness to serve. I just wanted to clarify when you said about the housing across the street from the church held up with bureaucratic nonsense. My understanding was access to water and sewer was the issue. And so then, how is that? Is that what you define as? I mean, it's not our water and our sewer. I think they wanted to tap into A&B's water and sewer, and A&B said no. So I was wondering if you can clarify how that's
I'll tell you what I know. I don't claim to know everything about it because I just drove by and observed based upon my experience. I understood that project was allowed to go forward with the intention of using A&B water. And when the buildings were all built, then somebody got up and said, I don't know that A&B turned them down. I don't think they would have started it had A&B not said it was available. And they said, no, you can't build, you can't come in here, we can't occupy these units because you don't have county or wherever the water purveyor is for that particular parcel. They had a water source. I mean, the county allowed Haile Maile to go out and drill 2 wells just to serve that project. And if they had A&B water for that project, if they didn't have it, they shouldn't have started, and they probably wouldn't have. I've also noticed that different methods or different styles of affordable housing that are sitting right behind the church. You see the domes, there's other modular units back there. They're just sitting. I mean, there are ideas that private people, in this case a church, wanted to fill a gap that was out there. They needed to have needed to have housing for the people displaced by the fire. And I haven't seen a lot of red tape being set aside to allow that to happen.
Yeah, they're also not really willing to let those come to Lahaina and have people put them on their own lots where they want to live in Lahaina. So I don't know what that's about. But I did also want to ask, how many projects have you done in Maui County?
Absolutely zero. I just live here. I retired. I traveled the country, came back and lived for 5 or 6 months. And I lived in Hana, lived in Kula, lived in Pukalani. And I have a small place I rent up in Olinda right now, and I haven't built anything here. I built all over California, Arizona, Nevada. I'm a life member of the California Building Industry Association. I've spent 25 years in Sacramento working on things like this.
Thank you. I'd like to use some of my time to ask Corp Counsel, is this board taking public testimony?
Sorry, hi. Okay, yes, because the Sunshine Board, they will be taking testimony in part of their meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel more comfortable with somebody that's encountered and overcome our things. And, you know, while your breadth of experience and whatnot is commendable, I almost feel like that's a public testimony aspect, because we have specific issues that we need to overcome, and that your experience is from other places. But I mean, we don't have to decide today, so that's just one of my concerns, is that like through public testimony, you could say what is done in other areas, the things that you've encountered. But what we need really is for people that have the experience with the specific obstacles and how to get us over those. So that's just my 2 cents for right now. I have no commitment to a decision one way or the other.
Could I address that? My 42 years of experience have allowed me to see different methods that could apply anywhere in this country, whether it be in California or in Maui. And my understanding of this position is to bring ideas to the table on how affordable housing can be developed and present it through the housing department to the county in whatever form you want. And whether or not I did it here in Maui or did it in Timbuktu shouldn't make any difference.
Members? Member Rollins Fernandez, I will absolutely let you ask a question, but if you wouldn't mind letting me address the committee really quick. It is about 4:10 when I had initially decided maybe we should take a break. However, we are in the middle of everybody now. So if you don't mind, we're maybe going to have to change the last 20 minutes of our agenda by finishing this Housing Advisory Board, and then maybe getting to the one member for the Police Commission, because he is here, and then discuss when we can meet again and to talk to everybody else online. But we will finish with the Housing Board, move on to Police, and then discuss when we can come back, if that works for everyone. So we won't vote on the Housing Board today, and we will hopefully vote on our Police Commissioner and finish. But please, you answered that. Member Rollins Fernandez is going to ask you a question.
Okay, thank you. Look forward to it.
Aloha, Mr. Chinioff. Mahalo for your willingness to serve after you've retired. I think there's a couple things that you've mentioned that I kind of wanted clarification on, and I wanted to correct the record a couple things. So, one, the Housing Advisory Board was created when we bifurcated Department of Housing and Human Concerns, and not after the fires.
Okay.
So I just wanted to correct the record on that. And then the housing that's around near like the church and stuff is not affordable housing. They're temporary housing, because words matter, and I don't want anyone to think that we think that those are affordable housing, because it's not. It's temporary. And then my two questions are, one, have you heard of or reviewed our comprehensive affordable housing plan for Maui? And then two, your experience is on a continent, and so the continental way of thinking is very different than an island way of developing, because our land and resources are much more limited. In California, you drive around, it's just like land everywhere, and people thought there was an endless amount of water, which they're now learning is not. And so I wanted to hear your thoughts on that, because the ideas, yes, ideas, but also within the frameworks of our county code and our state statutes. So there's obstacles and restrictions, as Member Paulton described. That ideas are great, but within our framework.
To answer your first question, yes, I have looked at the housing plan and the joint agreement that was made by all the agencies for providing housing after the fire.
Wonderful.
Secondly, the folks in Maui are looking for affordable housing to be able to stay here, to be able to afford to stay here. Whether the ideas come from the mainland or they come from homegrown people who went to wherever on Maui, it's the ideas that I understand that we need to bring forward. If lip service to affordable housing is in your code, if it says in your code we're only going to have lip service, we're not going to change the code if we need to change it. We're not going to come up with new ideas. You'll continue to do what somebody else said. We continue doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a new result. So there has to be consideration of change to things that are going on now. And I'll leave it at that.
Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you, Member Rollins Fernandez. Do we have any other Member Kama?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chanaya, for being here. Are you a full-time resident?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
I live here. I traveled all over the country and decided I wanted to come back to Maui and live here.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? If not, we will move on to the other nominees.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Members, Ms. Duvachel is next. Unfortunately, she's not with us today. Ms. Pomano is. I think she's online, yeah? Not yet? I think she'll be joining us later. My understanding is she'll be joining us later? No? If not, Mr. Spence, if you want to join us at the podium. Okay.
Chair, just to let you know, Ms. Pulmano did raise her hand, so she
Okay,
is
great.
on Teams.
Sorry, we're going to go in order. Thanks, Will. Halilani, please introduce yourself, and then members will have the opportunity to ask you questions.
Good afternoon, Chair and
Afternoon.
committee members. My name is Leilani Pomano. I work for Pacific Rim Land, and I'd be honored to sit on the board for the Housing Advisory Committee.
Perfect, thank you. Members, any questions for our nominee? Member Paulton.
First, how would you address any conflicts of interest?
Anything that would come before me that is part of my company, I would obviously recuse myself.
Thank you. And the next question, in terms of affordable housing and using the affordable housing fund, would you consider it more important to build generational wealth or prolong the housing and affordable stock?
Those are, it doesn't necessarily need to be two different criterias. The Affordable Housing Fund can address both of it. But there definitely needs to be policy from you folks on how you want the fund to be used.
Do you think 5 years affordability is enough?
In terms of,
if we're utilizing affordable housing funds for a project and it's only to be affordable for 5 years, is that a good return on investment in terms of natural resources as well as funding source?
I think 5 years might be a little too little, frankly.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions, Member Paulton?
That concludes my questions.
Sounds good. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, I'm happy to support Ms. Pomano when we do vote, which will not be today. So if other members do not have any other questions, I will move on because we have about 12 more minutes left in our meeting. Thank you, Leila.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Spence? If you'd like to please introduce yourself, and then the members will have their opportunity to ask you a question.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, members. My name is Will Spence. I am a former planning director and when you had a DHHC, I was director there for a short time. My passion has always been for affordable housing. I mean, since I started as a staff planner in 1992, I noticed, just the hardship of people, local people trying to stay here, how difficult it is. So in my tenure as a planner, I've always been very cognizant of that struggle and kind of led my career trying to help that. I think sitting on this board, and it's an advisory board, it's not a decision-making board. It's there to help the new Department of Housing. I feel like it's really an opportunity for me to give back and help with the processes and help with creating more housing on this island. Thank you. And
Thank you,
with that,
Mr. Spence. Thank you. Members, any questions? Let me double check members online. Do we not have any questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Member Johnson. I didn't see your hand when I looked down. Member Johnson, please ask your question.
That's fine. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, good morning. Good afternoon, Mr. Spence. Good to see you.
nice to see you.
We've been asking a lot of questions because this can be complicated when it comes to ethics and things. I know you worked on the Wailea 670 project and many other projects, but if there's some kind of ethics concern, would you recuse yourself, or do you have any kind of plans or anything in regards to that?
Right, and I anticipated actually Councilmember Paulton asking this question, but the answer is
Sorry
yes,
to disappoint.
I would recuse myself on any project that a current client or even a former client. I think those ethics are very important. Even at my time as planning director, I think I sought either 3 or 4 ethics opinions for ordinances that I had proposed to changes in county code, because there could be some kind of conflict because I'm a homeowner. So I thought that was important. Those kinds of things are important to get on the record and make sure that there's some clarity.
Okay. Thank you for your response, Mr. Spence. No further questions, Chair.
Thank you, Member Johnson. Member Cook, please ask your question.
Thank you for your willingness to serve, Mr. Spence. You have a lot of experience. We don't have much time. Do you have ideas about how to get affordable housing built, like process or what?
Yes, and thank you for the question. And I have read the affordable housing plan, and there are some things in there that would go a long ways towards implementing more housing and keeping affordable housing on this island. So that's not a new idea, but certainly some of the candidates that you're talking to today have a lot of experience in construction and the financing and those kinds of things. I have the experience in the process, actually the entitlement process, which government processes add a huge amount of cost to housing, and I'd sure like to help those things along. I think Councilmember Rollins Fernandez's question about can you send stuff to this board, I think that would be awesome. I think that would be amazing as the council comes up with policy to get input from yet another body, and then again, it's advisory, but still getting that input from people who know this sector of providing housing would be very valuable.
Thank you, Member Cook. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, let me double check online. Seeing none, thank you so much, Mr. Spence.
Okay.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you, members. I really
Thanks for being with
appreciate
us today.
Sorry for disappointing you there, Mr. Spence.
Somebody asked, at least somebody asked.
I'm not living up to your expectations.
That's fine.
Thank you very much. Members, if it's okay with you folks, I do have to pick up my sons sooner than later. If we wouldn't mind taking up Mr. Arias with the Police Commission and then discussing when we can reconvene next week. So Mr. Arias, if you would like to join us up here at the podium, I would take this time while he's walking down to apologize to those nominees joining us online that we're not able to get to you today. We had quite a stacked agenda. Our timeline has greatly shortened with the language with the IMB, so we are trying to squeeze everything in as much as we can. Thank you so much. Mr. Arias, if you would like to introduce yourself, please.
Aloha, Chairman. Aloha, County Council members. My name is Joseph Arias, longtime Maui resident, Waihuko, former law enforcement officer, but I also work in the entertainment industry and audiovisual. My first go around at serving on a commission, and I picked the Police Commission. Other than that, I'd like to welcome any questions.
Wonderful. Members, any questions? Let me double check online. Member Paulton?
So I mentioned before, like one of my priorities for this term is evacuation of elderly and disabled folks. And while it's not necessarily 100% under the Police Commission, like the police are often tasked with going door to door and things like that. And so I just was wondering in what ways you could contribute to ensure that evacuation of elderly and disabled, and then from there, all of our residents are able to evacuate safely. And what other boards and commissions or entities could you work with to keep that top of mind during your tenure?
Definitely what Ms. Watanabe said earlier, trying to implement some kind of policy or a policy into the Police Commission and work with her commission or her committee. And having a police department obviously expand knowledge is also important to their everyday operation, whether it's from the chief or the patrolman. But I think it's a good start to start someplace.
Thank you. And the other thing is that we're not, the mayor, the council, we don't have oversight of the Police Commission. And so, as testifiers or folks bring concerns to you, you would be the entity that has oversight over the Police Commission. And so I just was wondering how you would approach that role.
Well, most definitely myself and the other commissioners who have to play a big part of that. I just think it has to start someplace. And the more input we get from you folks and the public and as a whole, especially what's been happening at some of the hearings, the Police Commission hearings these past several months, going to be a big factor, plays a huge factor actually with anything that's going to be implemented going forward.
Thank you. That concludes my questions. Thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you, Member Paulton. Members, any other questions? Let me double check online. Okay, well, then if not, I would like to entertain a motion to recommend adoption of Resolution 25-39, including any non-substantive revisions. Thank you. I have a motion made by Member Sugimura, second by Member Kama. Any further discussions? Let me double check online. Seeing none, I would like to entertain a motion to recommend moving his name, Mr. Joseph Arias, to Exhibit B for approval. Thank you. I have a motion made by Member Kama, second by Member Sugimura. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Chair, that's 9 ayes, 0 noes, motion carries.
Thank you. Members, Hanaho, motion as amended, may motion as amended. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
9 ayes, 0 noes, motion carries.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reyes.
Thank you so much, folks. Have a good day.
Okay, members, now to discuss when we can rediscuss. What is
Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning? Okay, Member Kama, are you available Monday only? Okay, Wednesdays, not good for you, good for you. How about Thursday? Next week, Thursday. Thursday. Members online, are you able to join us on Thursday? Let me double check my schedule before I volunteer myself. Yes, the 13th. Can you guys do Thursday morning? Looking on this end now. Can you vote? Member Kama, can you guys do Oh, Casey, don't blow it. Nah, just joking. Okay, she didn't totally blow it. No, she didn't. She never does. She's amazing.
I can do Thursday after 10 o'clock.
Thursday after 10 o'clock. Thursday after 10 o'clock?
I think I can rearrange probably for Thursday.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Member Johnson, can you do Thursday at 10 o'clock?
I have an in-person meeting right in the middle of that.
Okay, what time is your meeting?
It starts at 10:20.
Okay. Okay. Is it a long meeting? We can take a recess, that's why, but we just got to get it done because we have a very short time.
It's an hour. It's long, so I'm.
Okay, not Thursday at 10
kinda
o'clock for
jamming me
you?
up.
Well, you know, can multitask like them.
Thursday afternoon, let me double check my schedule. Can you do Thursday afternoon?
I don't want to jam everybody up. I'll just miss maybe 45 minutes of it because it's even worse Thursday afternoon for me. So
Shucks. I'm sorry. I know. My husband is working that day, so that means I'm in charge of pickup unless my mom can do it. And Thursday morning would work best for me, but I would love to accommodate everybody's schedule. How does Thursday morning work for everybody on this end? Can we do Thursday morning? You can do after 9:30, Member Kama? Can we do 9:30 and then we can take a break for a little bit to accommodate Member Johnson's meeting as well, if that works for everybody? Okay, so we're going to do Thursday at 9:30. Consensus. Thank you so much. Okay, at this time, the Great Committee is in recess until Thursday at 9:30 a.m. We will reconvene on the same Teams link, and our in-person viewing and testimony location will be here at the council chambers. And right now, members, did I miss anything?
Just to clarify, Thursday, February 13th.
Thursday, February 13th, your last day to buy your loved ones some Valentine's Day presents is when we will be meeting. Other than that, members, thank you so much, Member Rollins Fernandez.
Same link.
Same link. Yep, I said same link, but yes, thank you.
Yeah.
No, I
Just for the
appreciate that.
public.
Appreciate that. Member Member
Just
Walker?
for the general public information, testimony has been closed, so there wouldn't be testimony at the recessed meeting. Is that correct?
There will not be testimony. However, we are still looking for the nominees to come in, and at that time, they can advocate for themselves. I think written testimony is still accepted. If people would like to submit written testimony, we would love to see it.
Thank you for the clarification.
Of course. Thank you, members. This concludes today's meeting. It is 4:32. See you on Thursday at 9 a.m. Same place, same link. See you then. 9:30 in the morning. And Thursday, February 13th. Aloha.